Why did Britain set out to settle Australia? Was it only a practical fix for packed jails, or did more ambitious strategic goals have a role? Rich in mystery and struggle, the story of how a small fleet of ships traveled across the great ocean to establish a new colony prepares the ground for a significant change in the histories of Britain and Australia. Join me as we investigate this amazing narrative, from its aspirational beginnings to the difficulties that molded its early years. The prelude towards colonization. Visual picture late 18th century Britain was a nation at a turning point. Its penal system was seriously disrupted when its American colonies were lost following the Revolutionary War. No longer able to send convicts across the Atlantic, Britain's prisons were bursting at the seams. Crime rates were soaring, and the government was desperate for a solution. The solution lay in the unexplored areas of the South Pacific, a huge unknown land with promise for geopolitical dominance and economic benefit, in addition to helping to solve their convict dilemma. New South Wales, with its strategic location and vast unexplored landscapes, became the focal point of British ambitions. The South Pacific was a region teeming with opportunity, ripe for exploration and exploitation. However, before any of this could come to fruition, a formidable journey lay ahead, one that would test the mettle of its voyagers. The first fleet set sail. In 1786, the wheels of colonization began to turn. Under the direction of Lord Sydney, the British Secretary of State for Home Affairs, plans were set in motion to establish a penal colony in Australia. The following year, the first fleet, a convoy of 11 ships, departed from Portsmouth, England, under the command of Captain Arthur Phillip. This fleet carried over 730 convicts, as well as Marines and officials tasked with the daunting mission of establishing a new colony. Imagine the scene: convicts crammed into ships, their lives forever altered, facing the harsh realities of life at sea. The journey was grueling and fraught with peril. After nearly 8 months, they finally sighted land at Botany Bay on January 19, 1788. However, their excitement soon turned to disappointment. The soil was poor and fresh water was scarce, making it an unsuitable location for settlement. Undeterred, Captain Phillip made a pivotal decision. He pushed further north and discovered Port Jackson, a natural harbor that promised a better future for the fledgling colony. On January 26, 1788, the British flag was raised at Sydney Cove, marking the official beginning of British colonization in Australia. But the raising of that flag signified more than just a claim to land. It heralded the start of a tumultuous struggle for survival. Struggles and hardships. The early years of the settlement were anything but easy. The land proved difficult to farm, and diseases spread among the settlers. Tensions with the indigenous Aboriginal population escalated, leading to frequent conflicts as the British encroached upon their traditional lands. Supplies dwindled rapidly, and by 1790, the colony teetered on the brink of starvation. As desperation mounted, the Second Fleet arrived in 1790. While it brought much-needed supplies, it also introduced hundreds of sick and malnourished convicts, further straining the already fragile colony. The conditions were dire, and many settlers faced the grim reality that they might not survive. Amidst this turmoil, Phillip's leadership proved crucial. He implemented policies to stabilize the colony, such as establishing agricultural practices and improving relations with the Aboriginal people. Through diplomacy and negotiation, he sought to create a coexistence, though this was often met with resistance. By the time he departed in 1792, the colony had a fighting chance, but it was clear that this was just the beginning of a long, difficult journey. Expanding the British footprint. As the years went by, Britain recognized the need to expand its control over the southern waters. Settlements sprang up across the coastline, including Norfolk Island and Hobart in Tasmania, which became important outposts for both convicts and free settlers. The rush to claim territory was driven by the need to secure resources and establish a foothold in the region. Convict labor became the backbone of the colony's economy. Many convicts were put to work on government farms or assigned to private settlers. They played a crucial role in cultivating the land, but the harsh realities of their lives were often brutal. Despite the challenges, some convicts found paths to freedom, earning tickets of leave or pardons, and assimilating into the growing colonial society. The quest for resources. As the colony grew, the quest for resources became paramount. The settlers soon realized that Australia was rich in natural wealth. Among these resources, wool emerged as a key economic driver. Visionaries like John MacArthur believed that wool production would be the colony's future, and their foresight proved correct. By the 1820s, the wool industry was flourishing, helping to stabilize the colony's economy. Meanwhile, sealing and whaling became major industries, particularly in Tasmania. The harsh yet profitable nature of these industries attracted more settlers to the region, drawn by the promise of economic opportunities and a better life. As wealth began to trickle in, so did new immigrants, eager to carve out their own destinies in this burgeoning land. The role of explorers. As settlers began to push inland, explorers ventured into the vast, uncharted territories of Australia. Figures like William Wentworth, Charles Sturt, and Hamilton Hume undertook expeditions to map the interior, discovering rivers, mountains, and fertile lands. Their explorations opened new frontiers for settlement and solidified Britain's control over the continent. The exploration efforts were not without peril. Explorers faced treacherous terrain, harsh weather conditions, and hostile encounters with Aboriginal tribes. Their journeys were marked by bravery and sometimes tragedy as they navigated an unforgiving landscape. Yet, their discoveries paved the way for future generations, laying the groundwork for a thriving, interconnected nation. Cultural and social transformation. As the colony expanded, a unique culture began to emerge. Early convict artists documented their experiences, creating some of the first depictions of life in Australia. Writers like David Collins and William Wentworth contributed to early literature, sharing tales of struggle and resilience. Newspapers like The Australian, founded in 1824, helped shape public opinion and fostered a sense of community among the settlers. Architecture flourished as well. Francis Greenway, a former convict and architect, designed some of Australia's most notable buildings, blending European styles with the unique Australian landscape. This burgeoning cultural scene reflected the colony's growing identity and aspirations as settlers sought to establish roots in this new world. A complex legacy. However, the legacy of colonization is complex and fraught with challenges. The arrival of European settlers had devastating effects on the indigenous population. The conflict over land and resources led to violent confrontations and significant displacement of Aboriginal communities. As settlers expanded their territories, the traditional ways of life for many Indigenous people were irrevocably altered. While the British colonization of Australia brought about economic growth and cultural development, it also set the stage for ongoing struggles regarding land rights, cultural preservation, and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. Today, Australia grapples with its colonial past and seeks to forge a more inclusive future. This ongoing dialogue shapes the national identity and highlights the need for understanding and respect for the country's original inhabitants. Conclusion. So, what drove Britain to colonize Australia? It was a combination of necessity and opportunity, a desperate solution to overcrowded prisons, and a strategic move to expand British influence in the South Pacific. The story of Australia's colonization is one of hardship, resilience, and transformation, a narrative that laid the foundation for the nation we know today.